Hey everyone, Duke New with 3D here with another video for you guys, and today I have not a mask, but a particularly rare filter I have to sort of discuss with you guys today. So today, as the title would suggest, I have for you this experimental E20R20 training filter. A little background history on this. Definitely during the early to late 1930s, the Chemical Warfare Service was kind of going all over the place in terms of design and experimentation. They had two key goals in mind with everything they were doing during that period. One was to develop a lighter weight alternative to the M1 series service masks, and the other was to develop a fully molded injection molded facepiece with integrated TISO deflectors. A lot of the early attempts to counteract the heavy weight of the M1 series service masks was basically just a bunch of weird variants of the M1 facepiece that were made out of thinner, lighter weight, impermeable fabric. They described it as Zap-on fabric. A lot of them had intermediate cellulose layers in between the fabric laminates. And they did away with a lot of the standard hardware and tried to integrate a whole lot of new features that would ultimately never be adopted. And the canisters, which would be similar to these training canisters, however slightly different, they experimented with all sorts of different canisters that were very similar in size and shape, would range from being either mounted on the shoulder to mounted in a strange carrier bag over the back, to mounting them directly on the facepiece in the chin position, to even mounting them horizontally slung underneath the chin. There was a whole lot of weird ideas and concepts from this period, which all of them were ultimately never adopted. Their first successful, seemingly, attempt to make a lightweight service mask, as it was called at the time, was the E32R35, which not only would have probably used one of these canisters, but used a fully injection molded facepiece, completely seamless, that had integrated deflector tubes. You may know this, you may have seen this facepiece as the Polmasan 1700 series. I could be wrong. I forgot the name. It's either 1600J or 1700. I can't remember. I'll probably link Moulage's or PixelProductions video on the facepiece in the description below. But yes, that was their first, or technically the world's first injection molded facepiece, was the E32R35, and as mentioned before, they would have used one of these canisters. I know the E32R35 did not last a whole lot much longer in development. It pretty much almost immediately got bumped off of the face of testing with the M2 series, or the M2 facepiece, which I don't know the experimental designation of currently, but it was the facepiece that ultimately would become the M2, and the E32R35 would ultimately get over-engineered and overdeveloped until it became what eventually was adopted as the Navy Diaphragm Mark III mask, but that's a different story. So a lot of the early M2 training masks, which were made out of molded black rubber, used these canisters, and it was not until the M2A1, which was the later variant molded out of a Class B gray rubber, which would have used a different canister designated M1 and painted a glossy gray finish like the M10A1 canisters. Just to give you an example of the size of this canister, these training canisters are very small. This is basically the same size as the normal M1 training filters, but obviously this is an experimental one given the E20R20 designation. And also this is sort of an interesting feature right here. This is carried over from during World War I, when soldiers would take a piece of fabric tape and write their name on it. This right here says Phillips, so that's obviously the person who used this. You can see the canister is quite dinged up, but it is in fully intact condition. There is no severe rusting, there's no holes, no pitting, and the inlet valve is fully intact and usable. Not that you would use this canister, given that it's more than 70 years old, but you know. But anyways, to give you an idea of the size, here is a normal M10A1 filter that would be on the M3, M4 lightweight service masks, or the M25, M24, M14 series tank and aircrew masks. It is the E20R20, or just training canisters in general, are easily 5/6 of the length of an M10A1. And they're also ever so slightly thinner in diameter. They're just ever so slightly smaller around the circumference of the canister itself. So that's also very interesting. There really isn't too much else to say about these canisters. They are As mentioned before, these are often found on the early black variants of the M2 and M2A1 training masks. However, I have seen 1 or 2 examples of Class B gray M2A1s which have been equipped with these canisters due to hardware recycling. And to give you an idea of how this would be mounted, it would literally just be stuck on the filter port like so and used as such. And I don't really know on what level these filters were produced or issued. I would assume they lasted a decent, like they were issued around while they were, you know, existing, and because they were fully serviceable, obviously, but ultimately they would have not been produced very widely off of their initial production batch for testing. So that's pretty much all there is to analyze about these experimental canisters. So again, a big shout out to CBRN Polska or Merrick, whoever you want to call him as. I don't know if I have anything I could link in the description below, but I'll see what I can find. And yeah, that's pretty much all there is to say on these. Kind of a neat canister, not really much substance on it. Not something you see every day, obviously, so that's about it. Anyways, I'm Duke3D. I hope you enjoyed. If you have any comments, questions, corrections, or concerns, drop them down in the comments below, and I'll see you all later.